Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.net, and unauthorized.tv. Welcome to Stupid Question Day. The audio is good, the video is good, the DLive chat is rolling, the unauthorized chat is up, and super chats are live. And of course, by definition, all super chats are intelligent, perspicacious questions by definition. I also want to say thanks to all of the Castelia History subscribers. I was very pleased to be able to announce on Social Galactic today and to tell you all tonight that the Castelia History subscription has hit and surpassed the break-even point. And what that means is that Castelia History is capable of standing on its own. We are going to be able to keep it going on a regular basis, assuming that we have the current number of subscribers. So it's a go. I mean, it always was a go, but it's in good shape is the important thing. And so this is something important that was important enough that we were willing to run it in the negative for a while if we needed to, but such is the level of interest and such is the level of support that's not unnecessary. And we have the first stupid question already from Yanni. Why did you take down the replay of last stream? Because I never leave up streams that deal with sensitive subjects on DLive. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that I wanted to make sure that people who are not subscribed to Unauthorized at least had the opportunity to hear directly from me what I had to say on that topic, it would have been an Unauthorized exclusive. So, I'm not interested in making it easier for the trolls and for the people who aren't even regular followers. I mean, honestly, if you're not subscribing to Unauthorized, then you're not really part of the intended audience. I'm open, I don't have a problem, obviously, with people watching on DLive and that sort of thing. I mean, it's always a good idea to have new ways of providing exposure and so forth, but that's not really my role in the unauthorized community. That's something that's a lot more for Owen, more for Razorfist. I don't care. I'm not really interested in talking to anybody outside the community. Fencing Bear says hi. Hi, Fencing Bear. Hope you're feeling upbeat today. Also, if any of you are fluent in German, there's a gentleman who is working on translating Arts of Dark and Light into German. And he's obviously a fluent native speaker, but it doesn't hurt to have a few more eyes on the stylistic choices and so forth. So if you happen to be a native German speaker and you happen to be familiar with Selenoth, that wouldn't be a bad idea for you to take a look at that. So if you're interested, email me with Deutsch in the subject line. Idaho Crusader asks, how bad do you think the U.S. cities will get as things break down? As bad as some of the prepper types predict? I think that some of the cities will probably get really bad. I mean, it depends upon how bad things get for the USA. If it runs into any sort of civil war situation where supply lines are completely disrupted, then I think that it could get as every bit as bad as the black pillars suggest. But it's not going to be like that in every city. It's going to be a different situation depending on the demographics, the supply lines, and the leadership. You know, a great leader can make a huge difference for just keeping people supplied and keeping people fed. A bad leader can cause people to starve even when it's totally unnecessary. The places that I think are going to be the worst off are probably going to be in the Northeast because of the combination of weather and racial demographics, and heavily black cities in the South like Atlanta. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near either Atlanta or New York City. Let's see. Harry Bear says, I was watching a video about Italy selling homes for really low prices due to economic problems and low population. It's not really the economic problems per se, it's the movement to the cities. I mean, Italy's been struggling with that issue for 40, 50 years. And it's, you know, the Italian nation has been demoralized to some extent even more than the American population. And, you know, don't forget that they had their own desperate problems in the lead up to World War II. Mussolini came in and actually did a pretty good job of solving some of them, but he very, very stupidly pursued empire. And that did not turn out well, as pursuing empire usually doesn't. And so they got conquered by the Germans in the north, they got conquered by the Americans, the other allies in the south, and the sort of golden age of Italian cinema essentially chronicles the demoralization and degeneration of Italian culture. And so people, they don't want to work hard and be peasants. They want to cut a bella figura and wear designer clothes. Understandably, in some ways, but yes, it's not a great situation. Is that the reason for the waves of migration? No. The reason for the waves of migration is the European Union and the way in which the European Union refuses to let nations defend their borders. Do you think big cities are only bad in the USA or just in general? I think big cities are bad, period. They're bad in Africa, they're bad in Asia, they're bad in Europe, and they're bad in the USA. The difference is that most of the European cities, with the exception of Paris and London, are much, much smaller than the even what would be considered small cities. I mean, when I went out east to go to university, people thought that I was a lumberjack or something. They didn't even consider Minneapolis or St. Paul to be urban at all. And I was kind of surprised to find out that Minneapolis and St. Paul are bigger cities than any of the cities in Switzerland, bigger than most of the cities in Italy. So it was that was very surprising. Were you aware the Baptist General Conference now goes by Converge? I was not, but I'm not even remotely surprised. All of the Protestant denomination leaderships are converged, with the possible exception of the traditionalist Methodists. even the Southern Baptist Conference, which used to be much more decentralized and much more genuinely Christian than its other Protestant, than the other Protestant denominations, that's converged now too. We're living, I believe that we're living in a period that can be reasonably characterized as a great deception, if not necessarily the great deception. Do you have any observations on the differences between European and American Jews? Not much, because I really don't know any European Jews. I know Israelis, but European Jews, with the exception of in Britain, tend to walk a lot more softly than American Jews. I have noticed that. If you're talking about people who are based and that sort of thing, people in Europe in general and people in Eastern Europe in particular are massively more based than Americans are. We have the first super chat from No Chance. Do the ruling elites want to instigate a violent reaction in order to justify martial law? No, they don't. Not on a wide scale. If they wanted to do that, why would they be so paranoid about infiltrating and breaking up every possible resistance node? They're terrified. They're absolutely terrified, because no matter how much centralization you have, no matter how much power, the numbers game is always in the favor of the non-elite. All of this, it's a trap, it's a distraction. I mean, that's all midwits trying to be smart boys. Look historically at the false flags. Look historically at what governments have tried to do. That's what they're trying to do now. Okay? So, No Chances, I understand, but they're so overtly evil when it comes to global homo. That has nothing to do with it. It has to do with what you can hope to control and what you can't. You're not dealing with retards. Only a retard would think that that is a clever, cunning idea. Violence, and especially mob violence, is playing with fire. And fire is unpredictable. I mean, why do you think that so many of the events that are supposedly inflammatory are faked? They fake things because to actually allow things to happen is too dangerous. It's too hard to control. Dark Lord fans, right? It's always, I meant to do that. Yeah. I mean, when you've got somebody who's in charge of the media, and remember, the mentality, the pattern is essentially gamma. Gammas don't control things. They're not masterminds. They look at what happened, they jump to the front of the parade, and they say, I meant to do that. That's all. What are your thoughts on attempting to implement European-style rail in New World countries like the USA? Absolutely impossible. There aren't the resources, there isn't the industrial base, there isn't the popular demand, and it's just not viable in a country that is as geographically spread out as the USA. Sam says, I introduced my boss to the SSH. He is a Sigma who just took over development. Not a question, but we are moving everyone to his proper role. I'll be interested to see how that goes. You know, if it'd be an interesting case study. Um, and it'll be very interesting to give us an update in 3 to 6 months. What is your favorite Italian dish? I'd have to say probably um, there's this like baked pasta that has a couple different types of sausages in it. I don't even know what it's called, but it's just phenomenal. It's probably the single best pure Italian dish I've ever had. Um, there's a particular type of pasta that I like. It's a Florentine pasta. It kind of involves like um, it's got like a creamy sauce with pine nuts and sausages. It's kind of a little nutty, a little creamy. Um, that's really good too. We have another super chat here from Kalaho Bear. Thank you. Hi Vox, have you heard of Peter Zeihan? Yes, I have. He has been pushing the idea that the world is deglobalizing. Well, I think that I think it is deglobalizing because I think that the combination of population growth and the end of the infinite debt growth means that it's just not going to be possible for people to travel around the world anymore. Uh, it countries are beginning to understand it's not to their advantage to be completely dependent upon food and technologies from other countries. So I think that, I mean, I haven't read his arguments, but I think that he's probably at least looking in the right direction. Terrence said, had to get a new debit card, but finally subscribed to Castalia History. Thank you, Taryn. Appreciate that. And you may have been the one to put it over into break even. So appreciate that. Will you be streaming with Owen at his new time? I'm sure at some point I will. You know, Owen and I have talked about how we should do more streams where I appear on his stream, or well, yeah, that's probably what it'll be, is me appearing on his rather than the other way around. I didn't know we had a new time, and if if I'm accidentally competing with it for some reason, that's not my intention. Berserker Bear, do you think there was civilization in America pre-Columbian exchange more than just native? Yes. The Native Americans talk about hunting and killing large white cannibals with red hair. There are indications, archaeological indications of advanced civilizations in South and Central America. We don't really know whether the Mayan, we don't know much about the Mayan culture, and the Inca civilization could have easily been a holdover or a survivor from a previous civilization. So it'll the history is much more interesting and complicated and convoluted than we can possibly imagine. So, do you have any cats? I don't have any cats, but we do have cats in the house. We actually have we have three now. So, I mean, I've told this story before. Years ago, over a decade ago, Space Bunny really wanted to get a cat, and so I was heavily lobbied to get a cat, but I'm allergic. So I said, okay, fine. They can they can you know, it can live outside. And then it's like, well, here's the thing: we can get the cat for free, but it, she's coming with her brother, and they really can't be separated. So we need to get two. It's like, okay. And I'm like, well, the cat's gonna live outside anyhow. It's probably best if it has a friend, because if it's got a friend living outside, then it probably won't want to come in the house. So that'll be cool. And so the day comes, and she goes up with the kids. Everybody's super excited. They're gonna get the kitties, and she comes back, and they're all outside, and everybody's all excited and happy. And I'm like, wait a minute. There's not two. There's three cats. I'm like, wait, there's three cats. Why are there three cats? And Space Boy says, well, I knew if I asked you for three, you'd say no. What do you do? So anyhow, we lost one of them, and then Space Bunny rescued one. Little tiny kitten, missing half its tail, freezing to death in the middle of winter. And she's actually turned out to be really, really nice. So worked out fine. And here's the punchline. So they end up in the in the attic, because the one that we lost, it was just too stressful for the family. And turns out they totally took care of our bat problem. So I'm now totally cool with the cats. I have no problem with them. They earn their keep. Who's worse at fetch, Vishlas or Ridgebacks? That's a good question. I mean, they're both totally useless. It's really a question of, I would say that the Vishlas are arguably worse, because they're more likely to go and grab the thing and then go running around with it and then drop it somewhere, so you have no idea where they are. The Ridgebacks are more likely to just look at what you threw and say, hey, your thing is over there if you want it. They're not actually going to redistribute it for you. So are groypers the end result of a gamma hive? I think that's, I don't know enough about them to know, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the whole thing, to be honest, strikes me as being at least somewhat manufactured. I don't get a fully organic vibe from that whole groyper thing. It just sounds, it comes off as at least somewhat fake, and definitely gay, as we've learned. What would it take to get you to go to your high school reunion? I just wouldn't. I have no interest in visiting Minnesota, and while I have nothing against anybody from my high school, and I certainly wish them all well, I've never been to a reunion. I haven't talked to virtually any of them, in what, 17, nearly 40 years. So it's just not relevant to me. Webfoot says the Chinese are communist in name only, but how fascist are they now? Well, they're not fascist at all. I mean, words mean things. What is it, what is there in common between the fascist program from, you know, it's 2023. These labels to describe 1940s, 1930s, or actually 1920s political ideologies are just not relevant. It's like saying, well, how Whig, how Whig is the Chinese Communist Party? Not very is the only answer that belongs to any of these ideological identifications. Your dogs are so beautiful. How many do you have? Um, 5 to the best of my knowledge, but I'm probably not the right person to ask. Um, Space Bunny's definitely not the right person to ask, because if we've got more than 5, she'll lie to you about it. Um, the I've been told that there's bets as to like whether I'll notice certain things. Oh, by the way, speaking of animals, we absolutely have to play this because this is one of the greatest things I've seen in a long, long time. I don't actually know if there's any sound to this, but I saw this today, and it just goes to show that otters are the greatest of all animals. Leave no otter behind. How awesome is that? The what I heard from those 2 Groiper refugees about Fuentes is really bad. Um, yeah, maybe it is. I mean, you know, there's. I mean, again, I'm just not that. I'm not that interested. Not even that. I am not at all interested in internet drama. I have no interest in internet celebrities. You know, I've been around online now for 20 years. I started the blog in 2003. And, you know, I'm never going to be the, um, you know, to the extent I was ever going to be the uh, hot internet celebrity du jour, you know, the political commentator. I mean, my window of opportunity closed a long, long time ago. You know, my window of opportunity opened briefly, probably before the blog even started, back when I got nationally syndicated by Universal Press Syndicate at the same time that they signed Ann Coulter. And I told them it was not likely to go well if they didn't, you know, force me on people the way that creators did with their syndicate. You know, if you take so and so, you have to take so and so. They they weren't going to do that, which I understood. I wasn't asking them to. I was just telling them, you know, if you don't do that, I doubt this column is going to go anywhere, you know, in a syndication sense. And sure enough, it didn't. The only place it ever got picked up by was the Dallas Morning News, and that was briefly, very briefly. As soon as somebody figured out what Rod Dreher had done, Rod actually signed my column, and I think they ran 2 of them and then got rid of it within 2 weeks. So, you know, I've got nothing. I've got nothing to prove. There isn't a competition. What I'm focused on is very, very different than what uh, a much younger, much more fame, media, celebrity focused individual is going to be focused on. it's just not my it's just not my objective. And so, these guys come and go. If they get propped up enough, like Ben Shapiro, then they end up sticking around. If they don't latch on, I mean, to be honest, it reminds me a little bit of the Silicon Valley model, where you have a certain amount of time to reach a certain number of eyeballs and excite a investor enough that they will give you money to keep you going. And that's not what we're doing. It's not what I'm doing. So, speaking of celebrities, would you do dark streams on Rumble where there is a larger audience? I don't have anything against it. I mean, I've never looked into the numbers or paid much attention to the numbers in terms of what the different platforms are. So, we have our own channel, and I'm more than content with that. I would be perfectly happy just doing this on unauthorized. And, eventually at some point when we add a few more features and stuff and we have it exactly how we want it, that's probably the only place we will do it. Although the fact that DLive has welcomed Owen back makes me a little bit more inclined to want to support DLive. So I hope the meme reviews return. They will. They'll probably be back on Monday, would be my guess. I've been under the weather, and then we had football, and that pretty much left me way too tired to. The combination of recovering from something and playing soccer was a bit much, and then we've just had some other stuff going on, so I haven't been able to stream quite as much as I would like, but we're back in the saddle now. Everything's back in order. Do you have a rough tonnage of your current canine companionship? Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's like probably around what? Probably around 400 pounds, something like that. We've got good canine poundage. Walsh's alleged hacker sent some nasty texts to random celebrities. Again, not very interested in internet drama and internet celebrities. Matt Walsh is high on my list of people to completely ignore. What is the biggest event that has stuck in your mind this year? Well, leaving out personal things, I would say the development of BRICS. All the various factors that go into the ongoing de-dollarization process. This is something that I expected it. This is something that I expected. This is something that I predicted. But I did not expect to see it happening at such a rapid pace without some highly negative economic stuff taking place first in the United States. It really surprises me that the de-dollarization and the development of the second great global economy is actually taking place before the U.S. economic collapse. And that's why I'm not the right person to ask how soon will the petrodollar go away. This is happening faster than I thought, so my timescale predictions would be totally pointless. Do you think the bank failures have run their course for now? No. I think that there's going to be more issues in the reasonably near future. Could be next week, could be, you know, could be nothing until October. But I think we can be pretty certain that this fall is going to be uh, exciting. How will de-dollarization affect the average American the most? Well, I think it's going to make credit harder and harder to come by. If people are not willing to foot debt, then the price of debt has to go up. So, um, I think that the deflation is going to start becoming more and more obvious as opposed to theoretical. There's a lot of bonds that are still on the books that are still mispriced. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Idaho Crusader. I expected full-blown economic meltdown before de-dollarization. Yeah, I did too. But apparently the other nations of the world um, are ultimately more concerned about the U.S. military power than about the uh, attractiveness of the U.S. economy. No chances, another super chat. He says, do you think Americans are fat due to additives in water, pesticides in foods, or something else? I think it's a combination. Americans were fatter 25 years ago um, as a result of, first of all, less physical activity. Secondly, a lot more food alternatives. You know, you could still, in 1995, you could still eat exactly the same way that you did in 1975. You could, but you didn't. I mean, I was around in 1975. I remember how little um, how little choice there was with regards to the different food choices. I mean, you know, you didn't have this vast range of food, different foods to eat from. I mean, this was before you could buy spaghetti sauce that wasn't from Chef Boyardee. Spaghetti sauce was basically tomato sauce that came in a can, a tin can. And you really started to see, it was really noticeable in between the years 1986 and 1996. My youngest brother, the one who died earlier this year, he graduated in 1996. I graduated in 1986, and I was astonished at the shapes, the bodies of the high school girls when I would go back to the high school. And I mean, they looked like they averaged 10 pounds heavier than they had the decade before when I went to school there. And it was crazy because, they were like 16, 17 at most. And, they were more filled out. I mean, not only were they, did they have bigger breasts and everything, but they all looked wrong. I mean, I remember these two girls walked by. They were soccer players, and they're pretty cute, but they were definitely packing extra junk in the trunk, which I was like kind of startled when my brother and his friend were like talking favorably about these girls, about how attractive they were. And I said, well, I mean, yeah, they're cute, but don't you think they're a bit, a bit packing a bit too much of a caboose there? And they both looked at me and said, dude, they all are. And that was the first time, because I hadn't paid any attention to high school girls since I'd graduated from, or since I went to college, really. And it was it was really startling to kind of look around and go, "Holy cow, they're right." And so um, that was the point, that period between 1986 and 1996. That's when you also saw the explosion of all the restaurants and all the ethnic foods and all the, you know, the size of the supermarkets practically tripled. You know, I mean, if you compare the size of the Red Owl and the Luns when I was a kid to the size of um, the Super Value and the Cub Foods, and forget like the Sam's Club and stuff. I mean, it was astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing. So, um, no, Anthony says, wonder if for girls it was also the pill. It wasn't the pill. Every single girl at my university was on the pill, and they were all slender. You know, um, I mean, we're not the pill. Like sometimes, yeah, it would help. It would cause girls to retain a bit of water and stuff, but it didn't have anything. No, see, pill vendor says no doubt. It's not true. You guys have no idea. Like, it's not like they all went on the pill in 2000. You know, the it wasn't it no it wasn't the no fat thing either. The Again, you know, I saw, I was there. I saw what happened. Okay, you would go to a restaurant. They were all these like fake Italian restaurants, and the size of the dishes that they would serve were massive. I mean, literally 3 to 4 times bigger. Like places like the Olive Garden, Spaghetti Factory, um, all these places. Uh, they sprang up all over the place, and like my family, they used to love going to those places. I didn't, I was old enough that I wasn't joining my family going out to dinner much anymore. But they would go to these places and just eat these massive, massive plates, and you see these, just the place was just packed with people, and even at the time, I mean, keep in mind this is like probably 1994 to or so, and you know what it was just opportunity combined with gluttony. You know, I don't think you understand. Some of you that are younger probably don't understand. People didn't used to go out to eat all the time. I mean, for us, when we were growing up, we would go out to eat like on somebody's birthday. Like going to McDonald's was something that you would do on your birthday. And, um, you know, if you think about this, if you simply don't go out to a restaurant for 6 months, I can pretty much guarantee that you're going to lose some weight. And, no matter what you do at home, just because, unless you've got something really fundamentally wrong with your head, then you're just not you're not likely uh, to eat as much when you don't have to clean up, you don't have to make anything. Um, you know, I mean, one reason I think that my family tends to not be overweight at all is primarily because we very, very seldom go out to eat. In fact, we almost never go out to eat if unless there's guests or something. Um, it's just not something that we do. We're much more likely to, I mean, if we want to do something like a big meal, a special meal, we're more likely to go to the butcher and buy some particular meats and that sort of thing that everybody really likes. And um, the fact that Space Bunny is a good cook means that you know going out to dinner didn't really appeal to us. It probably doesn't hurt that restaurants in Switzerland tend to be very expensive and not particularly good. You know, there's, I mean, within a 45-minute drive, there are four restaurants that I really like. One of them only seats 12 people. The other one doesn't seat anybody. It's basically a somebody doing something out of their house. That's it. You know. Dan and Georgia says food pyramid had bread at the top. Yeah, I know it did, but I don't think that really changed that much because who the hell pays attention to the food pyramid anyhow? You know, I fell for the whole no fat thing. Other than going to Khan's Mongolian barbecue on Friday nights after lifting, um, you know, I didn't eat any fat. But because I was, young and working out regularly, that didn't prevent me from getting completely ripped. So it's doable. Now, obviously, you can't eat an extra large bag of Doritos every night and expect to be in any sort of shape. But the main thing, and I do get it. I do get that there does appear to be something funky with the U.S. food chain. There's stuff that's up with the wheat that's causing all the wheat allergies. There's stuff that's up with they're injecting weird stuff in the meats, et cetera, et cetera. I would encourage anybody to source locally as much as they can and to source natural as much as they can. But that's not, that's not what is making people fat. What's making people fat is there's way too much good food in large quantities that's readily available at very low prices. We have a super chat from Kelbear. Is Divine Right board game still happening at some point? Absolutely. 100%. In fact, I was working on ways to source counters just 2 days ago. They put something in corn. I saw on an episode of Supernatural. Yeah, I don't think you can count that as the news, Marty. But yeah, I do believe that they've messed around with the wheat and the corn and all that. But the main problem is that, I mean, think about it. Most of you who are overweight, you just eat too much. That's all it is. You eat too much, especially too much carbs. I needed to lose a few pounds back, 10 years ago or something. It was maybe 7 years ago. Whatever. And all I had to stop doing was, because I worked out and because I was very active in sports and all that, I thought, well, I can eat whatever I want. Well, no, you can't after you're 40. my diet was reasonable. It just wasn't reasonable for somebody who's 45, you know? So I stopped eating cereal. I started having, meat and cheese with a glass of wine at lunch and limiting myself to one helping. You know, the 10 pounds or whatever I needed to lose was gone, within 4 to 6 weeks. No, I'm not going to end the show with a few memes. We're going to do a meme review early next week. Um, Headstrong Bear says, I grew up eating all the Franken food and didn't end up fat. I think there's a genetic component. Well, no, well, it could be partly, but yeah, and that's the other thing I think people tend to forget. Do you have any idea how horrible some of the foods were that we were fed, that Generation X was fed growing up? I mean, I have no idea what was in any of those TV dinners, but I'm pretty sure that there were plenty of preservatives and chemicals and everything else. I mean, we used we used to eat for lunch. You'd eat like two peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on Wonder Bread, and you'd follow that up with Twinkies and ice cream. We would come home from school, and my parents had these huge gallon-sized buckets of ice cream, like three of them in the freezer. We would come home from school, and the very first thing that we would do is eat a giant bowl of ice cream. Okay? If I ate what we were eating when I was a teenager, uh, you know, I'd be well over 200 pounds. The TV dinner portions were reasonably small, but, you know, that's why you'd have to eat two TV dinners. Defoe says, I suppose soda is out too. Yes, absolutely. Why would you ever drink soda? You know? I mean, I can't even think. I mean, it might have been decades since I last drank a soda. Although when I was a kid, that we would have it all the time. Um, but yes, cereal is murder for your diet. It is astonishing how much cereal you can eat, like, because it just like hits the spot, but doesn't really fill you up. Crazy. So, um, oh yeah, they were 2 gallon buckets of ice cream. That's what I like. My favorite was chocolate marshmallow, but the problem was that, like, if if uh, if it got freezer burn, then the marshmallow got really nasty. So, um, it was kind of funny. Mike, the drummer from Psychosonic, he's a bit younger than the rest of us, like maybe 4 or 5 years younger. But he was living in our basement for a while, and he was kind of gaining some weight, which seemed funny because he never seemed to eat much. He smoked like a chimney, and one day he said, I wonder if I can't seem to lose any weight. I wonder if it's because I'm drinking too much Mountain Dew. We're like, yeah, you do drink a lot of Mountain Dew. How much do you usually drink? He's like, oh, just 1 box a day. I was like, but what? How many in a box? He says, well, 24. Like, you're drinking a case of Mountain Dew a day. We looked up the calorie total. And he was getting all the calories that he needed to live just from the Mountain Dew. Like, dude, Like, drink 2 a day. And so, anyhow, yeah, if any of you are trying to, if any of you are trying to lose any weight, the two most basic things that you need to do are, number one, adopt the intermittent fasting thing. It's very easy to do. Um, just basically eat 2 meals a day, and one of those 2 meals should not have any carbs at all. I personally I recommend um, the meat, cheese, and wine approach. I That's always absolutely fine from my perspective. And secondly, don't drink any soda. So, no soda, no cereal. If you do those three things, um, the chances are very good that your body is going to be heading in the right direction. So, anyhow, I hope you enjoyed today's stupid question day. Thanks for tuning in. Again, thanks to all of you who have subscribed to Castalia History. We've got some great stuff in the works for that, and I'm happy to say that it is fully green light go. I'm Vox Day, and this is the Darkstream.